What's going on, everybody? Good evening. It is Wednesday night, December 3rd. We are on show 62 here of Biscuits and SEC Live. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight. I'm Boss Man. That is Hammer right there. We have a loaded show tonight because there has been an absolutely unbelievable amount of stuff that has happened. It feels like every day is like a year since we got away from Rivalry weekend, and we saw awesome games across Rivalry weekend. We saw Texas take down Texas A&M. We saw Vanderbilt take down Tennessee and thumped them in the second half. So we'll get into that game a little bit. Tons to talk about on the coaching carousel. I mean, since the Kiffin domino fell, it's just been boom, 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 domino after domino after domino. And that's why I got on the cowboy hat tonight, because of the SEC coaching rodeo. It has been an absolute bull ride for the last 4 to 5 days here going on, and we will get into all of that. And then we'll welcome in ELLIE MAI WILLIAMSON. We're excited to have her back. She has been pounding down our door trying to get back on to Biscuits and SEC Live, and she's a good friend of the show, so going to have a lot of fun with her a little bit later, and we'll talk a little bit about the SEC college football playoff picture as well, and then also a little bit of football. We've got an SEC title game to play this coming weekend as well. So gonna have a lot of fun tonight. Hammer, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. It is, I guess a bittersweet time for some of us, right? Regular season's done. We're on to championship week. So hard to believe the 2025 season is in the rear view. But as you mentioned, it's the most busy time of the year with signing day, coaching carousel, conference title, college football playoff. It feels like everything kind of converges at the end of the season like this and creates for, a lot of things to talk about for folks like us. I just got back in town for my honeymoon. I was down in Seaside, Florida, down on the 30A, so the Gulf Coast, the Redneck Riviera. It was fantastic. So feeling great, excited to talk some ball tonight.
Well, with all the graphics and everything we had to put together for tonight's show, because it was a lot considering all that has happened, we did not get any pictures from your honeymoon at 30A. So maybe we'll have to do that next week. We'll have to show a little bit of that. Last week's show, we showed a couple of pictures from Hank's wedding to my new wonderful sister-in-law, Jenny Keeler, as she's now known on Instagram. She changed that really quick, which I was impressed. So good for her. Glad to have her be part of the family. And sounds like it was a great time at 30A. I was definitely jealous. By the way, we'll get into one of these later, but we have Biscuits content now for like a month because Hank in 30A, I think, hit, if not all, at least 3/4 of the biscuit spots in 30A.
Every single morning I had a biscuit sandwich for breakfast. So we were, we were enjoying ourselves. We were typically, we would have breakfast out and then dinner out and then have lunch back where we were staying. So yeah, every single morning, biscuit sandwich.
I mean, for the brand, that was the whole point, right?
Exactly.
Honeymoon, but also too, right before we get into it here, Hank made his new wife, Hammer made his new wife get on a plane at 6 a.m. so that he could be there in time to sit down in the hotel room or the hotel bar, wherever it was, to make sure that he could watch Texas A&M versus Texas. He was not going to miss that darn game. Didn't matter if it was his honeymoon. Did not matter. That's Biscuits SEC right there, baby. We do not miss.
That's right. That's right. And hey, I mean, 30A, that's right in our demographic, our clientele. Right. So everybody was clamoring for me to get the biscuit wherever we went. They're like, that's Hammer. He's got to get the biscuit.
Yeah.
For Biscuits and SEC. So but good people down there. Those are our kind of folks. That's a great spot.
Definitely. All right, let's jump right into it because we have a ridiculous amount to get to. I don't even think we're going to get to all of it in the hour that we typically have, but we're going to try our best. So we got to motor through it. We got ELLIE MAI coming on here, joining us here in about 20 to 25 minutes. So first thing we got to discuss here, Lane Train, choo-choo, all the way to Baton Rouge. And wild saga. This has been going on for a month. Finally, it all comes to a head. We've talked about it multiple times on the show, talked about it ad nauseum in the Morning Biscuits newsletter, which be sure to go sign up for that Morning Biscuits newsletter, biscuitssec.com/newsletter. Mondays, Fridays comes to you every week, written by myself and Hammer. Lane Train in Baton Rouge now. It's done deal. He tried until the very last minute to stay at Ole Miss to coach them through the playoff. But that is not going to happen. It was a ridiculous amount of drama. Juice Kiffin gets left in Oxford. Doesn't even seem like it was his dog. That's the biggest thing that pisses me off about the whole thing, frankly.
Yeah.
And Pete Golding, now the head coach at Ole Miss. So give me your take on this whole thing. I mean, there's a million different ways you can take it. Lane Kiffin to LSU, what does that mean for LSU? What does it mean for Ole Miss? And was it a good hire? Where are you at on it?
Yeah, of course, we could go a ton of different ways here. And by the way, I saw, you, Jake Thomas, and our friend, so Jake Thomas from SEC After Dark, BAM After Dark, and Mike Huseman, Offseason After Dark, and SEC After Dark, hopped on and did an emergency pod of sorts. So y'all discussed this at length, so I would encourage everybody to check that out. But, yeah, a lot of thoughts on it. I mean, I think, what this boils down to is the whole, Lane Kiffin character arc kind of came crashing back down. And it seems like he hasn't maybe changed as much as he thought he had or, said that he had, because this felt very much like kind of the old Lane Kiffin of, just look, man, if you want to go to LSU, at some point, you got to put your big boy pants on, regardless of the season you're having, the playoff implications, and just say, this is the move I'm making, and make a grown-up decision. And it felt like he did everything he could to avoid actually making that decision, so much so, that he's calling out the athletic director in his statement afterwards, and it turned really ugly when these things often do. So I don't want to totally just rail on him, because if he did say that, right, let's say before the Egg Bowl, like, I'm leaving, Ole Miss fans would hate him anyway. And they have every right to. But it comes across very childish to me, the way he dragged it out. I mean, for days, right? Obviously, the Marty Smith stuff was funny, but it was like, when is this guy going to make a decision? Again, it seems like you've made a decision, and that is you're going to go to LSU, but you're dragging your feet, and you're not willing to accept the consequences that come along with that, which is you cannot coach this team. And if you really wanted to coach that team, then the answer is clear. You stay in Oxford. And he didn't want to do that, which is fine. I think, the LSU job, people can argue all they want about which job is better now and NIL and, the new landscape, things are even. LSU has been a better job forever. And so if you want to split hairs about who's better now, that's fine. But obviously Kiffin thought it was a better job. Most people would say it's a better job. And they have national championships to prove it. So I don't blame him for taking it. I blame him for how he did it. I think he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. And he should have just stepped up, manned up, and made the decision and said, this is what I'm doing, and dealt with the consequences instead of dragging it out, trying to kind of strong arm Ole Miss, which obviously, ruined whatever goodwill he had built up there. So looking forward, I think it's a great hire for LSU. Obviously, Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin was having the best stretch they've ever had in the modern era. So clearly he knows how to coach. I think given LSU's recruiting prowess, he will recruit high school better. That's probably the one knock on him that he's not necessarily proven he can do at Ole Miss, but obviously he's not lacking for talent. He's been able to make up for that in the portal. But I think it's a good hire. I also think that we just saw a home run hire, quote unquote, at LSU fail. So in 4 years, if they don't have multiple CFP appearances, SEC title appearances, or actual national title trophies, we could be having the same conversation because, as we've seen, 10-2, 9-3, 8-4, kind of what Brian Kelly was doing doesn't cut it. You need hardware in Baton Rouge. And so I think Lane Kiffin's capable. I think it's a good hire, but it's also possible that, the margins are slim in this game, as anyone can tell you. So the one thing, too, I will say on this that I find funny, for all the huffing and puffing that the Governor Landry did, Kiffin's contract is worse than Kelly's for LSU if he were to fail.
Yeah.
Right? So Jimmy Sexton wins again, I guess, is the moral of the story. Jimmy Sexton got everything he wanted. Obviously Kiffin did as well in terms of compensation. So
yeah,
I think it's a good hire. I anticipate he will do well there. Again, is he going to win a national title in his first 4 years? I don't know. Easier said than done, but I think he's proven to be a good head coach. And if he could keep his focus on the team, then I think they got a good one there. And then for Ole Miss, with Pete Golding, I got no idea. I think they made the only move they could, because you can't really go through signing day and the playoffs with an interim and then try to, cobble together something after the season. And I think too, again, we'll see how it works out, but I think Golding realistically is he has earned a chance to be a head coach. Will it work out? Who knows? But he's not a nobody. He's been around, big time programs. He's been at DC for a long time. So I understand why they made that move. And, obviously we'll see if it works out, but I think that was the only move they could make at this juncture.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, especially look, you're about to go on a playoff run, and signing days coming up and all this stuff. And also a lot of Ole Miss recruits know Pete Golding well, right? Like Pete Golding is considered one of, if not the best recruiter on that staff. And so he's got his tentacles all throughout the recruiting. You got signing day coming up. You got players who love him, by the way, gets a standing ovation in the team meeting. And so they really didn't have a choice, in my opinion. And with the cycle, a lot of these dominoes already falling. And by the way, they know, right, what's going on. They were talking with Jon Sumrall. They were talking with others. They were talking, I think, with Golesh. So they're hearing through the grapevine and from other representatives, like what these other guys are thinking, what these other guys are doing. And I think that we all know Lane was the first domino to fall. As soon as the Lane domino fell, then it was like boom, 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 just right after one after the other, right? And so they were kind of between a rock and a hard place, and they would have had to really, put the hair through a needle, the thread through a needle in order to get one of those guys to be their next head coach. When you had Florida open and Auburn open and Arkansas open, and even then Kentucky comes open late on Sunday night. So it was going to be tough for them when you had Pete Golding there in the building, who has had good defenses at Ole Miss. He did a good job at Alabama for the most part. I know that Alabama fans were ready to see him leave by the time he did go, but he did a good job. His defenses were good. He's a good recruiter, and you need stability at the top. And the players were all behind him, and I think a lot of the administration was as well. So had to do it. For LSU and for Lane Kiffin's departure, what an absolute circus, first of all. I mean, it was all Lane's own doing. The way that he handled this, I've listened to our friend Stephen Willis a lot, and I know he's very heated about it, and I get it. If I was an Ole Miss fan, I absolutely would be too. I mean, what is more SEC than welcoming this man to your program? He's kissing babies when he gets off the tarmac, gets onto the tarmac in Oxford when he first gets there. And then when he's leaving, you have a throng of people there, baby included. A woman brought her baby, and they're flipping you the bird, giving you one finger salutes and saying, get the hell out of here. Extremely SEC. It's why we love it. It's the drama and all of it. Lane Kiffin brings the most drama of any of them. I think he handled this extremely poorly, frankly. That was my takeaway from this. Also, the hubris and the arrogance to think that you're going to get to coach this team through the playoffs when you have put them through the ringer for a month as you've dragged out this decision. And not only, it's not like you're going to Penn State or UCLA or something like that. I think if he was going to one of those places, maybe he would get to coach through the playoff, right?
Maybe,
you are going to LSU, a trophy game against Ole Miss, a heated rival. In no world are you going to get to coach through the playoff and try to have your cake and eat it too. I thought anybody who suggested that, I mean, I love Kirk Herbstreit, I love Coach Saban, but like they were nuts for suggesting that, in my opinion. I thought that was crazy. Why are we even no? If I'm Keith Carter, I'm doing exactly what he did, which is apparently tell him, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, keep an open line of communication with us. We want to keep you. Also reported that Ole Miss was going to offer him more money in terms of his own contract. Maybe not for the players, maybe not in the NIL space, but it probably wouldn't have been that much better. I mean, a couple more million at LSU. Okay, fine. But a couple more million for you in your pocket at Ole Miss. No way are you going to coach this team, especially with what you put them through. And by the way, now it's coming out. All these players are coming out and saying, we didn't want him to coach. And he lied to us in the team meeting. And, Keith Carter's saying, yeah, what he's saying about, he didn't know until Sunday morning is not true. Like I told him weeks ago that he was not going to get to coach the playoff. And the whole thing that's lost in this too is, there was another decision that was out there on the table. If you wanted to coach this team in the playoff, stay at Ole Miss. Stay at the place that embraced you, that gave you a second chance at a Power 4 job, that gave you a second chance in the SEC. And no, instead he turns his back on him and stabs him in the back on his way out the door, runs, to his plane, says he got run off the road. BS. Don't believe any of that. He had an escort to the tarmac, and he's got a dog that was a PR dog that he didn't even own. But we're still tweeting about Juice Kiffin. That's the thing that makes me the most mad. Juice Kiffin, justice for Juice Kiffin, hashtag justice for Juice Kiffin. If you guys agree with me, go tweet that right now.
Right.
So the final thing I'll say about this, and then we can move on. We got to hit some other coaches here because there was a lot more hires. Everybody's been talking about the calendar. The calendar this, the calendar that. The calendar's the problem. Lane Kiffin is a victim of the calendar. Well, you know who handled this pretty well and professionally and did a good job and got a pat on the back on the way out the door from their old administration, from their old players, all of that, and some of them going to get to coach their players through the end of the season or the playoff run or whatever it is? Jon Sumrall, who just went to Florida. Alex Golesh, who is going to Auburn. I mean, to suggest that, just Lane Kiffin and it was the calendar. Okay, I agree with you. The calendar sucks. We got to work on that. We got to fix that. Lane Kiffin, like he has done at every single stop that he has been at, got in the car like the Joker, like Heath Ledger, lit the match and threw it right behind him and blew up the whole thing. He's blowing up the hospital on the way out, like in the Dark Knight. And Oxford is in the rearview mirror. He blows the whole thing up behind him, and he goes down to Baton Rouge. Is that the calendar's fault? No, it's not the calendar's fault. It's Lane Kiffin and the way that he decided to handle this. And he handled it extremely poorly, like he has done at just about every other stop he has been at. So will this hire work out for LSU? Yeah, probably will, in my opinion. He's a darn good coach. I mean, look at this. This is the graphic I put together about it. 55-19 at Ole Miss, 743 win percentage. He was 3-2 in bowl games, 3 straight 10-plus win seasons, won 10-plus in 4 out of 6 years there, and 25, the best season in Ole Miss history. Has them on, going to be in the playoff, and they've got a shot at a national championship. And that is the crazy thing to me, is that you've got a shot at a national. You coach this game to win titles. That's the whole point, right? What if you're at the G6 level, it's win conference titles and try to get in the playoff. If you are at the Power 4 level at every single program that you're at, the whole point is win championships. And he has a team that has a serious shot to win a championship. And here he is, just out into the night to go somewhere else to maybe win a championship. It's really frustrating. So anyway, we'll see how it works out at LSU and at Ole Miss. Yeah, there you go. Mike Elko, Kurt Signetti, on down the line. How many coaches, can we name that signed extensions? And there's a bunch more that are now signing extensions because of Penn State. So, yeah.
Well, let's go around the rodeo, the carousel, right? Because we mentioned it was not just Kiffin to LSU and then Golding backfilling. We had Auburn hiring Alex Golesh from USF. I think important, I think Auburn fans are excited about this, and they should be, because, you look at this and you're like, 22-15, not that great. But we talked about this, I think last week, because we thought Golesh was going to Arkansas, but he took over a dumpster fire at USF and turned them around quickly. And just, when you think about, I guess, a head coach in the SEC, again, we'll see if it works out, but he seems to have a great mentality. I mean, he's no nonsense. He's hard-nosed. He was even saying it in the presser, like, we're going to run the ball. We're going to be the most physical team, all this stuff. And, I think you need that. And not that, Hugh Freeze didn't want to be physical or whatever, but I do think it's just helpful to have a guy who seems to really get that aspect of it. And I think Auburn should be happy with this. I think Arkansas should be upset that they did not land him. What are your thoughts on Golesh to Auburn?
I think it's a great hire. I really like the guy. I think, part of this week and these hires is winning the press conference. We've got the records from the past and everything, but now they're on the big stage. And so you got to go out there and win the press conference. I thought he did a great job of that. I mean, he comes across as no nonsense. He comes across as a very good coach. He went into the swamp this year and got a win. Arkansas completely fumbled the bag on this one. I mean, just really, it's pretty bad that they do not have Alex Golesh at Fayetteville, but he ends up on the Plains at Auburn. And I really do think it's a solid hire for Auburn. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does. In his introductory press conference also mentioned, we're going to run the ball and put an emphasis on it. Right. And there's a quote too that came out. I haven't seen audio or video of it, but it was something to the effect of, I don't effing golf. I don't effing fish. I coach ball.
Yeah. It's like, I have no hobbies.
No hobbies. This is what I do. And so, I'm excited to see what he does at Auburn. I think it's a really solid hire. So let's go on here. Let's go to Florida. I want to hear your thoughts on Jon Sumrall, because this is another one I'm really excited about as well. Florida fans not as excited. Kind of depends on who it is. Laura Rutledge was excited. Chris Doering, the national media types were excited about it. Florida fans kind of mixed bag, I think, on whether or not they're excited about it. 42-11, 792 win percentage, 1-1 in bowl games, reached a conference title game every single year that he's been a coach, 4 years in total. And Troy, he got them to their first AP Top 25 finish in program history in 2022. And he's got Tulane playing at a great clip, could potentially make the playoff here if they win their title game this weekend. So give me your thoughts on Jon Sumrall to Florida.
I think it's a fantastic hire. I think, honestly, he was my favorite, G5 coach to upgrade in this coaching cycle. I thought if you listen to this guy in press conferences, like you said, winning the press conference is important. His introductory one was great, but he's been great since, I'll watch his stuff at Tulane. I've heard he's been on with Josh Pate on the speaker series, so long form interviews during the off season. And he just seems like he's cut from the right cloth. He gets the modern era of college football. He is very upfront about, NIL, all this stuff. I mean, here's a good example. His quarterback last year, Darian Mensah, gets poached by Duke for an absurd amount of NIL money. And, he handled it with grace, said, okay, great. See you later. Thanks for your service here. And doesn't complain, doesn't whine, picks up a kid in the portal. And like you said, well, guess what? He's back in the conference title game. They're 10-2, one of those losses to Ole Miss. So heck of a season. And his track record, even to go back to Troy was a complete disaster when he took over there. So for him to turn them around as quickly as he did, and then to take what, Willie Fritz had built at Tulane and really not miss a beat at all. I think this guy can coach. I think he can relate to players. I think he's hard-nosed. I think he's great. And we'll get into this later with our Muschamp Coach of the Week, not to, give a spoiler here, but, kind of what you said, the Florida fans a little mixed on him. I think most of that is due to the fact that he's a G5 coach from Louisiana. But he had a great response to that. It's, in his press conference when he was asked about it. And I think he's going to crush it. To be honest, not to poo-poo Golesh, because I think he's a very good hire too. This would have been my number one. And I think, we kind of thought Auburn had him. Turns out they didn't. And I think Florida got a really good one. So I would be excited if I was a Gator fan. I think this guy's going to do a great job.
Yeah, I think he's solid as well. I'm really excited for Gator fans to see what he can do. And he mentioned this in his press conference as well. Somebody asked him about, well, Gator fans are a little bit hesitant about another G6 coach, so kind of what can you do to assuage their worries? And he pointed out this guy in the front row, and he said, I'm pretty sure this guy coached in the G5, if I remember right. His name's Urban Meyer. You guys might remember him. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who have coached the G5 come up and crushed it. It just depends.
Florida fans just wanted Lane Kiffin, and they had been telling everyone that they had Lane Kiffin for months. So when it wasn't Lane Kiffin, half the fan base was disappointed. I think the half of the fan base that's excited are the people that actually pay attention and know that this guy's a good coach.
Yep, I think that's right. Okay, there's two other ones I think we want to get to quickly, and then we'll bring on Ellie. We're working on her video, having a little trouble with some lag, so we'll figure that out in a second here. But first, let's get to Hog Heaven. Ryan Silverfield, not Alex Golesh, is the new head coach for the Hogs. He was previously at Memphis, beat Arkansas this year, 50-24, 676 winning percentage, 4-0 in bowl games. 8+ wins, 4 out of his 6 seasons there at Memphis, and then had a bad loss to UAB in 25 this year. I mean, UAB is terrible. So I think that's a little bit of where this consternation is coming from Hogs fans, and he never won the conference in Memphis. We talked about this with Mike Huseman and Jake Thomas when we did that emergency pod talking about all these coaching moves. And I asked Mike about it because Mike is much more well-versed in the G6 than we are. And he said he didn't really like the hire. And so it was interesting to hear his thoughts. So y'all go check that podcast out. But anyway, Hogs fans are kind of pissed about this hire, frankly. I think partly because they thought they had Golesh, and then that whole thing fell apart at the 11th hour. But then also the two things I mentioned, the UAB hasn't won the conference at Memphis. Okay, the record's okay, but it was so bad that they organized a protest outside of Donald W. Razorback Stadium. So they're not happy about this hire. They're pretty sick of Hunter Yurachek. I mean, I can't believe that he still has a job, to be honest with you. But he does, and he's the one who made this hire. So anyway, I mean, look, I think he's a decent coach. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is definitely the one, that gives me the most pause, obviously. And I guess it's kind of twofold, like you said. First, I think it's obvious that this was option 4, 5, or 6, down the line. It sounds like, Arkansas, rightfully so, took some bigger swings, struck out, had Golesh, fell apart, at the 11th hour, and then kind of had to settle for Silverfield. And kind of what you said, he hasn't been bad, obviously. But let me just put it this way. If Arkansas doesn't hire him, is he back at Memphis next year? I think yes.
Mm-hmm.
If Florida doesn't hire Sumrall, if USF doesn't hire Golesh, go on down the line, they're not back at their school. Someone's hiring them. I don't think Silverfield was going to get hired by anybody other than Arkansas. Matter of fact, another one, I think, based on what I heard, I think Eric Morris, the North Texas coach, picked Oklahoma State over Arkansas. I think Arkansas was very much in that race and lost out. And take from that what you will, but I think this guy was well down the list, and this is a little out of my expertise, but this is definitely something that I have heard, and that is Memphis relative to the rest of the American has a bigger NIL budget because of FedEx being in Memphis and having FedEx money, and so the fact that he hasn't capitalized on that by way of a conference title is concerning to a lot of people. And mind you, he took over for Norvell. So again, similar, I guess, to Sumrall coming to Tulane, it's not like he built Memphis up from the ground. He inherited a good G5 program and has kind of just maintained status quo. And that's sort of what worries me, because Arkansas is not a job that you can maintain the status quo at, right? Obviously, they're looking for somebody to build that program and improve it. And I'm not so sure Silverfield has that in him. But like all this stuff, man, it feels like a flip of the coin. So he might be the perfect man for the job, and he might prove me and a lot of other people wrong. But it does feel like this was kind of a way down the list, like, all right, we're going to settle for this guy because we can't get anybody else.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep, at this point seems like a reach. So, all right, let's quickly get to Will Stein here at Kentucky, and then we'll bring in ELLIE MAI. I think we got our video working now. So, Will Stein here at Kentucky. This was a surprise. I mean, we talked about this a little on the Emergency podcast about, is there any other jobs that can open up, and we mentioned Kentucky. Well, sure enough, like an hour later, it opens up, and Mitch Barnhart had a plan in place pretty quickly. He gets this done. He gets Mark Stoops to agree to space out the payments for his massive $37 million buyout. And then he goes to work right away and goes after Will Stein at Oregon. And he has been the offensive coordinator at Oregon for 2 years, had a top 10 scoring, or maybe 3 years it is, top 10 scoring offense 2 out of the 3 years that he's been there. Number 9 scoring offense in the country this year, 13th in total offense, and they had the number 1 scoring offense in the Big Ten in 2024. So really solid offensive numbers. And the big problem at Kentucky has been offense. I mean, they haven't had a top 50 offense, I don't think, since 2021, and they've barely cracked the top 100 in the last couple of years. So it has been anemic in Lexington. So maybe he can bring a spark, and I think that's what they're looking for. And talk about, winning the press conference. He seems like he has done a good job so far in galvanizing the Kentucky fan base. They're excited about it. So what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I think they should be excited. I mean, I guess my concerns here would really only be with the fact that he's quite young and he's first-time head coach. But as we've laid out a lot before, I think there's – just look around the sport right now, right? I mean, whether it's Kirby or Ryan Day, there are plenty of guys that excel in their first head coaching job and don't have previous head coaching experience. So in a lot of respects, I applaud Kentucky for thinking outside the box here, because it seems like the rest of the SEC was, looking over here, and Kentucky's like, hey, we think this guy's ready, and we have a plan. I mean, we talked a lot at the outset of the show about all the drama between, LSU and Kiffin and all that nonsense. And Kentucky couldn't have been less dramatic. Like you said, AD Mitch Barnhart's like, it's time to make a move, and I already have a guy. Less than 24 hours, we are going to have a new head coach. And I applaud that. So Stein seems like a very bright guy, obviously a great offensive mind. We'll see if he's prepared to elevate into the head coach role, but by all accounts, seems like a great fit. He's he played at Louisville, but he's from Kentucky, so he's obviously got ties there, familiar with the state, and I mean, I think it's a really good hire. I think they needed to make a move on Stoops despite the buyout. It just felt like apathy had set in, and that's kind of the worst place to be as an athletic department when it comes to your football program. You know, I can't remember the saying, but basically, yeah, apathy is the worst place you can be in because people not caring is as bad as it gets. So I think that had set in there. It was time for, you know, a fresh face, and they kind of went the opposite route, right? Young guy, offensive mind. So I like the hire. I like how they went about the hire. Who knows if it'll work out?
Yep. Tom Fornelli quote for sure. And
Right.
like you said, credit to Mitch Barnhart there on the way that he handled this entire thing. There is a coaching search still going on, day 53 or something at Penn State. So how to handle a coaching search and how not to handle a coaching search. So, all right. I think we are ready here to bring in our guest picker, ELLIE Mai Williamson. Let me get it right here. There she is. ELLIE, how are you?
Hello, how are y'all?
It's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Yes,
thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me again. Sorry, my camera quality seems to be a little glitchy on my end, but I was going to do breakfast for dinner and bring some biscuits. However, it is National Signing Day and I haven't even made dinner. So just going to go get some dinner with a close girlfriend of mine and catch up on normal life after today. But hopefully next season, I'll bring on some biscuits.
There you go. Sounds good. Biscuits next time. And next time, the biscuits hat. They're catching on like wildfire. We're hearing from everybody. They want the biscuits hats. So, you know.
Oh, speaking of which.
She's got it. There
All
it
right,
is.
she's got it.
Look at that.
Backwards, awesome. Everything.
Oh, it looks great. Well, we are glad to have you on again. For those of you who don't remember ELLIE from our show a couple weeks ago, she was on for week 8, show 55, and she's a reporter and a producer for the Players Lounge Tennessee, TPL Tennessee. You can follow all of her work at TPL Tennessee on YouTube and across their social media channels. And then be sure to go follow ELLIE as well on X and on Instagram at ELLIE_May_. She does a ton of great work covering the Vols and the SEC. So, ELLIE, the first thing we wanted to talk to you about tonight, the college football playoff rankings. They came out last night. We only have one more until the college football playoff field is set as we get into championship weekend here. And the SEC playoff picture is interesting because we still have a couple teams that are right there on the outside looking in. The numbers are kind of going around, which could depend on, you know, okay, does A&M get to host a playoff game, or do they have to go on the road, depending on how this championship weekend shakes out? You've got Vanderbilt on the outside looking in. You got a front row seat to that, beat down they put on the Vols in the second half. So give us your thoughts on the SEC college football playoff picture and kind of where we stand.
Yeah, so you're right. I did get a little bit of action in Vanderbilt, and I also joined a little early, and I heard some Jimmy talk. So there's going to be no Jimmy slander from me. He's one of the hardest working men that I've probably met. I met him back at the College World Series and had the chance to get to see him again. I don't remember, it was a few weeks ago. Don't remember what game, but at one of the Vanderbilt games down the sidelines, we got to catch up and talk a little bit. So no Jimmy Sexton slander from me. I did join in early and hear that, but yeah, playoffs. I'm trying to be in my Elsa era of letting it go with the playoffs. They are a committee. They have a job to do, and they are taking it very serious, obviously. And I mean, the best show on TV is the committee every week. Like, it is, like, I sit down, I watch my Landman, my Dancing with the Stars, Yellowstone when it drops. Like, I am in my chair sat with popcorn and a blanket. And it same goes for the committee show every week. I mean, it is drama. It is comedy. It is everything that I've, would want to watch on a TV show. So, they want what is best for a true playoff, and they are trying. And I mean, you can't look at a 10-2 team that beat a ranked conference rival game on the road, and that team you beat at the end of the season after a gauntlet of conference teams. And that team also won over UGA in Oklahoma at one time, almost. So, your two losses were to Texas and Bama, and that's it. And so my opinion, they should be in over a team that plays a watered down win-loss record. But, like I said, the committee, they love the drama. They love the chaos. They want championship weekend to mean something, and it should. So on its own merit, I feel like, I think it's funny, Duke has a chance before Miami. So, I mean, what a time to be alive. Duke has a chance before Texas and Vandy. Oh, well, I'll be watching college football playoffs no matter what. So, yeah, I say we make championship weekend great because, these games should matter more.
Yeah, they should matter. I'm with you on Vandy though. I think they should be in, and it's a shame that it's the best season in program history. They're 10-2, and they're sitting on the outside looking in. Obviously, barring, I don't even know what kind of miracle they would need. I don't think it's possible at this point, given that even Texas was slotted ahead of them. Although Texas beat them head to head. So, like you said, they have a job to do. It's not easy. It's hard to compare all these different resumes, but I feel bad for Vandy, and
yeah, and they are trying. I feel like the committee has definitely got a tough job, and it's not one that I would want. So it's a tough decision each week, but they're giving us some really great television content every week.
It's all content, that's for sure. It is definitely content, and the fodder on Twitter after it is just so much fun to watch. I will say this. You're going to start a fight between me and Mike Huseman because we were fighting about this on Twitter today. This is our friend Mike Huseman from Off Season After Dark, does a great job. I will throw hands at anyone who slanders Manny Diaz. Well, Mike, I'm not slandering Manny Diaz. I'm slandering the 5 losses that Duke has. I don't care if you win a conference championship. If you have 5 losses, you should not be in the playoff. Vanderbilt should get in over them. Even Texas, this Aggie is saying Texas should get in over a Duke. And so, I mean, the BYU thing, though, I am with Mike on that. BYU getting hosed. Their only loss is to Texas Tech, a top 5 team, and they're in their conference championship game. So even if they lose to Texas Tech again, it's a conference championship game. Like, how can you not put BYU in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Tennessee almost beat Georgia and Oklahoma. It was two very close games. So I'm going to have to agree with you on that. There's a lot of decisions that have shocked me. But I think that overall, that's college football. It's going to be twists. It's going to be turns. There's going to be, other teams getting in over rivals. And there's going to be a lot of talk that comes with that. And I think each fan base, especially in the SEC, are going to make their case for a college football playoff run, like we saw with Vandy with their document. But this weekend is important. It is, it should be on the highest stage. And I think everyone needs to kind of turn their attention away from the playoff committee and what decision they're going to make come the day they announce it, and still focus on what this weekend is, because it's a really big accomplishment for any team in this conference. So I think, ultimately we need to highlight what's at stake this weekend and keep the main focus.
100%. We have spent most of this show not talking about football. And so great point. We would love to talk some football with you now. And so here's the guest picker standings, 4-2, including last week's guest, Travis Brown, who did a great job. He went 4-2 against the spread. So we got little trophies next to Rivers, Gabe, Drew TAMU, our little cousin, JT, little boss man, and then Travis Brown. They are all the ones at 4-2. Ellie Mae, you were right there at 3-3 in week 8. And so then we got a big log jam at 3-3, still a 5-1 out there, still a 6-0 out there. So we're giving you championship week to make another run at it here. So let's get into some games. Let's start. I want to do the SEC title game, I think, last. So let's go first to the Big 12 title game, one we just touched on. We have BYU, number 11, and they're going to play Texas Tech, number 4. It's supposed to be a sold-out game there, apparently, which is awesome. I love to hear that for the Big 12. 12.5-point favorite for Texas Tech. Texas Tech played very well for most of this year. They're solidly in the college football playoff, looking like they should probably win this game. But do you think BYU can pull the upset?
If BYU wants its moment to shine, then this is it. Like you mentioned, a sold-out game, supposedly. If you want a chance to really prove yourself to the college football world and to SEC football teams that want into the playoffs, I think Texas Tech is honestly just coasting by, and I might get a lot of hate for that. But BYU only scored one time, the first time these teams met this year. So because they messed up and didn't protect the football, I think that's kind of changed the game for them. But of course, both teams know, what they did wrong, and of course are in the film room and watching to fix this for this next game. So BYU has one loss on a record and it stings, but BYU doesn't have the horses that Tech has. So BYU has a chance to win it. I'm going with Tech to win this game, though. It's going to be good football.
It is. I'm excited to watch this game. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, especially with all the drama that surrounded Kalani Sitake potentially going to Penn State, over the course of this past week. Is that a distraction for BYU? Is that an issue? Texas Tech just re-upped Joey McGuire for 7 years and a whole bunch of money. So one team solidly in, coach is all in. The other one, he was kind of flirting with another school. Maybe that's a distraction. Maybe it's not. We'll see.
I feel like they're going to play harder for him in that
Maybe
case.
So.
Yeah, maybe a lot of the outside media noise has entered the locker room and allowed those guys to kind of, push harder for their coach. But Tech has been coasting by. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up against BYU. But I'm going to go Texas Tech.
Okay. All right. I like that pick. Hammer, take us over to the Big Ten title. This is a 1 versus 2 matchup. This one is going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome. So obviously, where we're all from and our interests lie is in Atlanta. But outside, I think obviously number 1 versus number 2, this game is as big as it gets. And speaking of coasting, I think both of these teams in a lot of ways have been coasting most of this year. Part of that, I think, is because they're both really good, but they just, other than, I guess, Indiana at Oregon and Ohio State week 1, they don't seem like they've really been tested that much. And so I'm just fascinated to see this matchup where obviously, hopefully they, will test each other and who can respond here. So, I mean, these two teams are both undefeated 12-0. And I would imagine, Ellie, you brought up make championship weekend great. I think both these teams really want this. Ryan Day hasn't won the Big Ten in several years. Obviously, Indiana, it would be, have they ever won the Big Ten in football? So it would be a monster win for them. So what is your read on this with, I guess, what is it, Ohio State 4.5? It feels basically like a pick 'em, but what is your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I feel like this game's going to be the bread and butter of this weekend. These two teams are really good, and I don't know why Indiana got so good and so fast. I think that should be studied right now because their growth throughout the season has just been incredible. But this game will give someone a 1-loss record. So I know Ohio State has rumors of injuries, but they are deep on that roster. So no matter what, I'm going to have to go with Ohio State winning. I know a lot of other media people have been picking Indiana, but I still feel like, with all the injury drama they have going on, they still have the guys that are capable to come in and get the job done. So I'm going to go Ohio State, but either way, this game is going to be neck and neck for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think, maybe it's a me problem, and I think Indiana is really good. But when I see Indiana against Ohio State, I'm like, obviously it's Ohio State, right? But
right.
Again, maybe it's a me problem. I might be way off. I see those two logos, and I'm like, in my head, I just keep thinking, there's no way they could actually do this.
No, I agree with you. I feel like this whole college football season, I've been seeing logos match up next to each other, and I'm like, okay, there's no way. And then I go back and I'm looking at, the film and looking at how they played previously, and I'm like, well, I guess that's a new logo we're going to have to enter into that factor. So I agree with you. The logos get me for sure, but Ohio State's just such a prestige program, and I feel like you've got to still go with them. It's going to be the bread and butter. I said it. It's going to be the bread and butter of this weekend.
Yep. Butter my biscuit, man. I'm excited for that one. All right. Let's go to the ACC title game, a playoff spot on the line here. Duke and Virginia. Who would have thought that at the start of the season, that is what we would be saying about this game, and that either of these teams would be in the ACC title game? I mean, everybody thought at the start of the year it was going to be Clemson, Miami, maybe a Louisville in there somewhere, maybe a Pitt. Nope, Duke and Virginia. So Virginia is a 3.5-point favorite. 5-loss Duke could potentially get into the playoff if they are able to win this game. What are you thinking in this one? Do you think the Hoos can do it, or do you think it's going to be the Blue Devils?
I mean, I feel like Duke doesn't want to be a fraud. So they've reached this game because of a 5-way tie, which who would have thought?
Yep.
Will they be out there playing with a chip? Yes. But I mean, who isn't this weekend? That's what this weekend is all about. So Virginia is just better in my opinion. I don't know what it is, but I think they'll end up winning the game. But yeah, I'm going to have to go Virginia. I feel like Duke they got in because of a 5-way tie. They're trying to be something they're not. Their identity's a little lost as a team. So I'm going to go Virginia.
Okay. We have you may not know this, but Hank and I grew up much of our lives. We split our time between Texas and then Virginia. And so for most of the second half of our childhood, we grew up in Charlottesville. And so we have a lot of friends who are Cavaliers, who went to the University of Virginia, who graduated from there. So they will be very excited to hear your pick, especially with the fact that UVA beat Duke 34-17 earlier this season. So can they do it again? It's always tough to beat that team a second time. So can they get it done? I'm excited to see. And this is the year they got to do it, by the way, because their arch rival, Virginia Tech, as you know, just hired James Franklin, and he is doing work on the recruiting trail. So it has been a tough rivalry for them, and we'll see what they can do going forward. All right, Hammer, take us over to the American title game. We got Tulane with new Florida head coach Jon Sumrall, and then Eric Morris, who's now going to be headed to Oklahoma State here soon.
Yeah. So Ellie, obviously it's championship week, so we got to pick the games that we have. But sorry that we have to pick these because hopefully you know more about these teams than I do.
No, I think you've been putting.
I know both.
Recently.
Well, yeah, I know both of the coaches are off to new jobs, but we'll be coaching out the rest of the season. The only Tulane, I've watched a little bit of Tulane. I don't think I've watched any UNT this year, but the Mean Green are 11-1. Tulane is 10-2, and I do like this. The American and I think all the G5 conferences play their title games at home, or the higher seeds home field. So this game is in New Orleans at Tulane, and they're actually slight underdogs here against the spread at 2.5 for the Mean Green. So what do you think happens in the American title game, and possibly earning one of these teams a CFP playoff bid?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it early. Tulane, they're doing as best as they can with the coaching situation, and I respect it. I mean, not a slam to anyone at all, but he's staying there and keeping his team first in the process. And honestly, I think they give him a ride out with a win, just to kind of, thank the coach for everything that he's done for the program to get them to this conference game. Plus, they are really good. I mean, that roster is prime for transfer portal fun after. So I feel like, a lot of really great teams are going to gain from this Tulane team, and I think they're going to ultimately come out on top this weekend. But got to give a lot of props to the coach for sticking it out, for, the athletic director for allowing him to stay in the program, and, stay focused on what's still at stake this season before, next season comes into play. I think it's super important. I think the guys are going to want to come out one last time for that coach. So I'm going Tulane. Like I said, roster stacked. What more could you want? And a great coach behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. This one to me, again, very different scales, but similar thought process of like, okay, Tulane's been there. They were good under Willie Fritz. They've been great under Sumrall. UNT kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, it's like, are they really for real? Could they go into New Orleans and do this? Or is this kind of just like you said, Tulane's talented, great coach, and they're at home, kind of a send-off, if you will, for Sumrall, again, barring the college football playoff. So I
I
like
will
the pick
say,
there.
though, the Mean Green does have a tricky quarterback. So Tulane's defense is going to have to keep an eye on him. He likes to get out of pocket a lot. He likes to scramble, make plays happen. He's got a great O-line that's been doing well for him so far this season. So I think that's going to be the one challenge for Tulane. But ultimately, yeah, Tulane is going to come out.
We said it the last time, Ellie knows ball. I was going to mention that as well because Eric Mestemaker, I think his name is, he was a 0-star recruit, didn't play quarterback, and then you have what's the coach's name? Eric Morris. Eric Morris brings this kid into he's thrown for like over 4,000 yards. As you said, he can scramble. So the big thing to me, that's the X factor here, right? Can Tulane stop him? Because that kid is a baller, and we know that Eric Morris can call offense, which is why Oklahoma State hired him. So the other little thing I would say about this game is both these coaches, like we said, have new jobs that they're going to be taking at the end of this year, going to get to coach through the end of the season. Well, this is the way to handle a coaching search, right? Both of these coaches, from what we have heard, they were very communicative with their athletic department, with their ADs, and, both of them have gotten pats on the back from the fan bases, from the athletic department, and all of that, saying that they handled this very, very well. So not throwing shade at anybody right now. I'm just saying that is how that went down. So good for them on how they handled that situation. Okay, next one. Before we get to our final game, the best for last, the SEC title game. Rick, I know you're listening. Thanks for joining us. SEC title game. We'll get to that in a second. But the first one we got to get to is with a former SEC coach. You got Dan Mullen at UNLV. He's had them at 10-2. They've had a great season, and they're going up against Mountain West power, Boise State. Boise State, I believe, is 8-4, if I remember correctly, but made this game. UNLV not favored, though, even though Boise State is 8-4. Boise State favored by 3.5 in the Mountain West title game. Ellie, who you got in this one?
I'm going to have to go UNLV. I don't know. That's just kind of my gut there. After reading up on the teams and checking into it, I've not had time to really dive into that conference. SEC has had enough going on, and Knoxville has been very busy. So I'm going to go UNLV. I'm confident in their coach. Like you said, he's done great this season so far. But this is just a conference that I really haven't had time to dig into. But my gut's going to tell me UNLV.
Okay. I like that. So I should have mentioned this, but Boise beat UNLV 56-31 earlier in the year. So that was one of UNLV's 2 losses. And so that's why they're favored by 3.5. But I still like it. I like your pick. I think Dan Mullen's a good coach. As he said in his press conference this week, we know how to recruit. I don't know if anybody out there thinks that we can't recruit, but we're recruiting right now. So UNLV, I think that's a good pick. They're like
portal recruiting, but yes.
Yeah. They're last chance U of the West.
I was about to say that. I didn't want to say it, but it was about to come out.
There you go. Yeah, we're same wavelength there. I like it. All right, Hammer, bring us home, man. Talk to us about the SEC title game. This is the one that we are all excited about.
That's right. I know I'll call it the granddaddy of them all. I think that's what they refer to the Rose Bowl as traditionally. But anymore, I love the SEC title game. And, it's funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same, because all the craziness in the SEC the last, this season with A&M, Ole Miss, Vandy having, the best seasons they've had really ever, or at least in the modern era, we're still Georgia and Alabama back in the SEC title game. So feels like old times. And, this game, obviously we saw it earlier in the year in Athens when Alabama won by a field goal. And so I'm kind of just curious, Kirby is 1-7 against Alabama. Can he finally, other than that one national title, so I can't say it's all for naught, but can he get over that, Alabama hump, Kalen DeBoer hump over the last couple of years and get the win here? Georgia, slight favorite, but again, kind of just feels like a pick 'em here. What are your thoughts on the SEC title game?
I know y'all talked about the coaching carousel and coaches already, but there are coaches that love the school and the state and the community, and they live for that. And I feel like Kirby Smart is one of them. And maybe that's a conversation for another episode, but he just lets his work do the talking at Georgia. And with all the playoff talk about teams that should be in or whatever, Smart got it done. So he didn't have to worry and leave it to chance and talk his way in. He beat Texas. He beat Ole Miss. His track record over the last 3 seasons is a movie, like very Saban at Bama, like very, legendary Hall of Famer coach. So we all saw that first game with Bama and FSU and immediately said, Bama is done. We wrote them off. They were not. And the style of this type of SEC football is very much alive, which makes this championship game still mean something. I know it's repetitive. I feel like it's always Georgia Bama, but the style has changed around this game. And UGA has never beat Bama in this particular game. So that is something I can't shake when picking this one, but you don't think Georgia knows that. Like they do. They're aware of it. Injuries are rumored. They're at Georgia. They may be worn thin for this game. But it's not smart to bet against Kirby when he's got something to prove. So Georgia gets this one. The loser of this game may have one more L on the playoff record, but it was an L in the SEC championship game, and that is still very much important, and I think the committee will keep that in mind. But like I said, I'm going to have to go Georgia. I'm never betting against Kirby when he's got something to prove like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point about the injuries. I think, I guess we'll see, but I think Georgia's center Bobo is up in the air. I think on the Bama side, I know Jam Miller went down with an injury in the Iron Bowl. I don't know what his status is, and I think the tight end Cuevas is not expected to play. And he's been pretty impactful for them in the second half of the season. So it'll be interesting to see, if he's not out there, what Ty Simpson that offense can do, because Kirby will have a good plan on defense.
Our friend Rick, he says no. Bama fan,
yeah, big
Captain
Bama
Biscuit.
fan.
He's very sad.
I'm sorry. I just don't feel like it's Bama's year, and they're coming back to the Dome, and I think it's just not the Dome, but the Benz. I still call it the Dome, being like a Georgia native. I'm sorry, it'll just never change in my brain. But Kirby, they know that stadium inside and out. They just got done playing there. So, right. I mean, he's a little ticked off. I'm going to have to say Kirby's a little ticked off going into this game because I think he knows, there's a lot at stake for his team. And especially when it's a rivalry game like this with Georgia and Bama, he's going to pull out all the stops. He did it against Ole Miss. He had that trick play there at the end. And I think without Bobo at center, it's going to be a little challenging and tough, but Georgia is stacked. I mean, he may honestly get some reps in there and might start him off in the game, have to pull him later on, depending on, his hand and all of that. But like I said, Georgia is stacked in that position. They've got all the way down to 4th string, 5th string. They've got your 5 stars ready to go he will be ready no matter what. Georgia overall. I'm sorry, Rick.
All right. Well, Rick, you can come back and talk smack if the Tide end up getting it done. The thing I'm really interested in this matchup, I mean, it's the obvious, but it's the quarterbacks. Ty Simpson, he's played very well at times this year. At times it's been kind of spotty, in some of these losses and in some of these games where it has come down to the wire. But at the end of the day, the kid has moxie and he just gets it done for the most part. But on the other side, Gunnar Stockton does too. Gunnar Stockton, he has played very well. Again, boss man Hammer, at the start of this season, we talked about in the preseason, not as many people very high on Gunnar Stockton. They were kind of like, we were high on him. Like, this kid's a baller. What are we talking about?
I would like to say I've always been high on Gunnar. I used to cover him back in high school, back when he was, speaking of moxie, he had it. He walked around with it everywhere in high school. Very quiet guy, but you could just tell the moment he stepped on the field, he flipped the switch, turned into a different player. I think that's why Kirby wanted him so much at Georgia, is because of what he brought to the state, being an in-state kid, and then also just his style of play and how he was able to lead the team, even when he was a backup learning from Beck, from, Stetson, those other guys. He still had that leadership quality in him and kept it throughout the time for him to come up and start. So even since high school, I've been a Gunnar fan. I'm glad you finished that sentence off when you talked about Ty Simpson having moxie. I was like, you better finish it off with Gunner having it, because he definitely does. And I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong, like he has all season. And Ty's great. Don't get me wrong. You're right. He has an arm. I mean, I watched him kill us against, this season at Bama. So that was not fun to watch. But I got to see it firsthand. And, even back when he was in high school too, he grew the rankings and, spent his time under 1 year as Saban and then now with Kalen. So I think, they've developed him well in that program and he's done a great job. And it'll be interesting to see how he matches up against Georgia's defense. But I'm sorry. I'm trying to say nice things about Bama. It's really hard. It's just not in my blood.
Ingrained in you in the other way, right? Yeah.
Right.
The Tennessee and the Georgia blood flowing through you. Yep. I get it.
Okay, though. I do think Ty's a great quarterback, and ultimately it's going to be Georgia.
I think too, with Gunner Stockton, you cannot drive an old, beautiful Ford truck and not have a whole lot of country boy swagger. I think that just comes with the territory. If you drive one of those things, it's like, oh man, this guy, he's got it.
He's roommates with one of my good friends, Oscar Delp, who's at Georgia, and I've covered both of them since freshman year of high school, and so it's cool to kind of see him stepping into that role and showing it more to the public eye. But he's always been that person. He's just never really. Nobody's ever shown that, but he's always just been a good old country boy. I mean, where he's from, all it is football, trucks, Friday Night Lights. Like it is.
That's right.
That's all it is. Fishing.
Yep. Fishing. Mm-hmm. Good old country boy. All right. Well, Ellie is picking the Georgia Bulldogs. Ellie, before we let you get out of here, we got one final question for you. As you know, the last time you were here, you gave us some very good spots on the Biscuit radar in Nashville and in Knoxville. We're going to change it up a little bit since you already gave us some good biscuit spots. Favorite part of the Christmas meal? Do you guys have a tradition with your family or anything? Do you like the Christmas ham? Do you have a favorite Christmas side? Do you guys have like a big country breakfast with your family? Like, what's your favorite when it comes to Christmas?
So we try not to do too big on the breakfast because our lunch/dinner is our really big Christmas meal. But wake up, we have the sausage balls. Don't know where my Meemaw gets them. Don't know if she makes them. All I know is they show up and they are my favorite thing. But my biggest dinner Christmas, can't miss it. It's a tradition. It's been going on for forever in my family, but our prime rib.
Yeah.
They have the sauce with it. I don't even need the sauce. That's how good the prime rib is. But I'm like, okay, fine. But it's the meat guy in Gallatin brings it to our house every morning, and not every morning, every Christmas morning. And it is just one of a kind. I don't know. We have it marinating. We have cream potatoes, broccoli cheese casserole, which is one of my favorites. If done right, you can get a little cheap on it, but you got to really slave at it and make it, homemade. But probably the salad, which is weird to say, but we have a specific salad that we have at Christmas. Okay. And it's a homemade dressing that's been in my family for generations. So the salad combo with the broccoli cheese casserole with the prime rib. Holy cow, I'm hungry. I need to get to dinner now.
No doubt about it. Well, we will let you get to dinner. I'm looking for an invite next year to the Williamson household for Christmas. My gosh, what you just laid out the spread. That sounds incredible.
It gets me so excited and giddy. I put up my Christmas decorations yesterday and I'm like, it's almost time. I'm such a Christmas holiday girly. Christmas
is the best. I'll tell you the truth. I don't typically decorate my house, which is bad, but I'm going home for Christmas usually. So what I've been doing lately is I've just been putting on the YouTube stuff in the background with the Christmas tree. So I got a little bit of ambiance. Yeah, I'm still doing a little bit of ambiance here at the Boss Man household. But all right, everybody, that is Ellie Mai Williamson. She does a fantastic job, as we said at the outset, for TPL Tennessee. you can go follow her at ELLIE_May_ on X and on Instagram. And then you can also follow her on her YouTube page at Ellie, the Players Lounge TN. And then a bunch of her work as well is featured on at TPL Tennessee on their YouTube channel and across their social media platforms. So Ellie, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you again. We look forward to seeing if your picks make it out, if you get to 5-1 or to 6-0, and we'll look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me. I love getting to do this, and I definitely need to do some more up on my YouTube. So, and on my social media. So I'll be posting a little bit more this off season for basketball and other sports. But yeah, thanks again, guys. I enjoyed it.
You bet. Thanks, Ellie. We'll see you soon.
Love it. Thanks, Ellie.
All right. Everybody, that was Ellie Mae Williamson. Did a great job with her picks again. She was our week 8 picker. So if you missed her picks on week 8, you can go back and check out that episode as well. And then we got a couple more things to get to here, Hammer. We got a lot to get to. I know you have to get out of here. I may can finish out the rest of the show here in about 5 minutes. But let's go back really quickly. I think I want to talk. Do we want to talk games or do you want to talk Penn State? Maybe we can talk.
Well, I was going to say we can. You might close out like with the Iron Bowl and Vandy, Tennessee. I need to be here for the A&M conversation because I feel like as Aggies, we need to eat crow here, and it's taken me a few days to cool down, but I think I'm ready to talk about what we saw.
I'm not cool. I'm not cool. But take us through it. Your thoughts on Texas handling A&M in Austin. I mean, there's nothing more you can say about it. The Aggies played pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've cooled down. And the nice consolation prize is we know that A&M is still in the playoffs. So season is not over, unlike last year where it was very much over. So that helps. It helps me cool down. But yeah, I mean, again, I think let me just start out here at the outset and eat some crow here and just say that, Texas absolutely earned this win. They were, the better team for 60 minutes on Friday night. I thought there was a better coach team in this game, which, hey, for Aggies, it's really kind of weird to say because it feels like we've had the edge in most of those games this year with Elko. What he's been doing on defense, Klein has been really good overall this year. And I thought really on both sides of the ball, A&M just kind of laid an egg. I didn't really know what Klein's plan was. It didn't seem very cohesive. It didn't look like they were ever able to get into rhythm. And again, Texas deserves credit because that's the second year in a row. So it's not an anomaly anymore. But we talked coming into the game, A&M has all these weapons. They have so many different ways they can beat you. And again, they just never really got going at all on offense. So that was impressive by the Texas defense. Look, they held A&M to 337 total yards. So just an awesome job by them, especially coming off of, some pretty bad defensive performances. We said that coming into the game.
And by the way, just to stick this in there, I mean, 337 total yards isn't like that bad, but A&M shot themselves in the foot on, how many occasions? And even if you watched the game, it felt like A&M was just scraping out 4 yards. There were A&M has been known this year for their explosive plays. Yeah. And they really did not get many explosive plays in this game. They did rack up 337 total yards, but every one of those yards was earned. Texas made them earn every single yard. And the thing I wanted to interject here really quick was Texas did that on defense without their leading tackler. Anthony Hill Jr. did not play in this game.
Yeah.
Which was, for Aggies, like that's kind of embarrassing. Like their leading tackler did not play in this game, and you really could not get anything going on offense for the entire night.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, credit to Texas defense. It just felt like for the second year in a row, it just feels like Kwiatkowski has owned Klein, and I'm not exactly sure why. I felt like A&M has played a lot of good defenses this year, and held their own or performed well, and they just didn't have it in this game. And then same thing on defense. I mean, look, obviously the first half was great. You hold Texas to 3 points, but they gave up 218 yards on the ground. And Texas has been one of the worst rushing offenses in the SEC. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher all season. And for the second year in a row, Quintravion Wisner just pops off. He had 155 yards in this game. So, again, for all the praise that Elko and his staff have gotten this year, deservedly so, they were outcoached in this game. And because, again, Texas' offense has not been very good. And it's not like they had a banner day, but, I just don't understand where that came from, where the 200 yards came from. They didn't get a ton of pressure on Arch. I mean, Cassius Howell was pretty much completely neutralized. So it's kind of what I keep coming back to is it felt like A&M laid an egg, and in a lot of respects, it just, you tip your hat to Texas because they just outplayed them, frankly. I mean, a good example of this would be you and I texted you as soon as this happened, and you were right on it as well. Obviously, it was the Arch touchdown run.
Yep.
Man, it could not have been more obvious what they were going to do. This is a quarterback draw, and not only does he get the first down, he goes all the way into the touchdown. It's just it just felt like that kind of night for A&M where for some reason they were just not in the right place at the right time. They were running stunts and Texas was running at it. It was just the chess match. Texas was taking them out.
Yeah, there were a couple things that I took away from this game. First of all, give Texas their flowers, right? We're both Aggies here. We got the bias. We get it. But take our bias and our maroon glasses off for a second. Going into this game, I said that A&M typically struggles against running quarterbacks, and Arch is not that. Well, what did Arch do? Arch runs for, it wasn't not like he went crazy, but he ran for 65 yards. He made multiple plays with his feet to extend drives. And then he gets the touchdown at the end of the game to seal it. And so, credit to Arch. He made the plays when he needed to. And I'm not saying I wasn't saying that Arch is not, a good running quarterback. I know that he can run. I know that he's got legs when he needs it. But A&M has more so struggled against the guys where it's a serious threat, like a Talon Green or a Lenora Sellers or some of those types over the years. And Arch isn't that. Arch doesn't have the legs to match up with those guys, but he can make the plays when needed. And when he sees space, he gets out there. And A&M never had a spy on him when they needed it. He was able to get out and get that open space. He was able to extend those drives. And then he made the plays when he needed to. I mean, A&M, I said this also on the 3 Tech Pod with a bunch of our other Aggie friends, our 3 other Aggie friends over there at 3 Tech Pod. And we were previewing this game. And, I said the way that A&M loses this game is if they beat themselves. They have the better team this year. They're the better coach team, et cetera, et cetera. So the only way they can do it is to beat themselves. They beat themselves. You got 2 late Marcel Reed interceptions, the one that seals the game for sure. A&M's, driving to try and make a comeback. Throws both of those interceptions were garbage. The first one he threw was into triple or quadruple coverage. Why are you throwing the ball? So shot themselves in the foot there. We mentioned the Arch TD run. What happened on the play before that? You have Texas in 3rd and 8. You have them in 3rd and long. A&M has one of the best third down defenses in the country. Yep. And you get an offside penalty. Cassius Howell tries to jump the snap. Son, what are you doing? Just sit back. Your defense, third down defense is really, really freaking good. Don't do that. What are you doing? Next play, Arch touchdown up the middle, QB draw. On a 3rd and 2 with an empty set. Of course it's a QB draw. Like you said, give me a break. So A&M shot themselves in the foot, but Texas took advantage when they had to. They also busted that coverage where you've got Ryan Wingo in the back of the end zone wide the heck open.
Yeah.
He's the best receiver. How is he open in the back of the end zone? Completely busted coverage, and Arch found him. So Texas made the plays when they needed to, and A&M. And the last thing I'll say quickly, the thing that really surprised me in this one is A&M started slow again, right? One of the guys on the 3 Tech Pod said that. A&M can't get off to a slow start. They keep getting out to a slow start. Eventually, it's going to bite them. Well, they got out to a slow start. But even with that slow start, they take a 10-3 lead into halftime. And A&M has been a very good second half team, and Elko has been known throughout his career, since he got to A&M really, as a second half adjustment guy. Like when A&M comes out in the second half, watch out, Elko second half adjustments, right? So I'm thinking going in 10-3, A&M's second half team, Elko second half adjustments, it's in the bag. You're up 7, and this is just going to go the way that it has gone in the second half typically for A&M. And it didn't. He got out-coached in the second half. Klein got out-coached in the second half. Elko gets out-coached. So, again, credit to the Texas staff for what they did.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, going into halftime, I felt great when Concepcion had that jet sweep for a touchdown. I'm like, as you said, great. This is going to go like every other game's gone this year, and we are going to play better in the second half than we did in the first. And that didn't happen. And I think to kind of close this out, my last thought again is it felt like kind of for the second year in a row that A&M was too nervy, too juiced, out trying to do too much. And we've seen this. I brought it up earlier on the show with Kirby. Kirby's 1-7 against Alabama. How does that happen? I don't know. Ryan Day lost 4 games in a row to Michigan. How? I don't know. It kind of feels like, it's too early to call it a trend, but 2 instances of Elko versus Sark, this A&M team versus Texas, and A&M has been not mentally as strong as they needed to be, in my opinion. I think 2 years in a row we've seen it where they did not play their A game in either instance, and it's just an interesting thing to consider moving forward because there's something going on there, and hopefully, obviously, it ends next year. But they're 2 for 2, and kind of like, man, what was that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And finally, I'll put a bow on this year. Texas fans, congrats again. Got the win 2 in a row now against the Aggies. Texas fans like to say they dominate this series. And if you look at the win-loss record over the course of it, yeah, sure, whatever. Well, you racked up a bunch of wins when we sent off our heroes to go to war. So you're actually criticizing heroes, who went to World War II and World War I. So, watch your mouth when you talk about that. But actually, jokes aside, this series is 20-19 since 1975. There was obviously the big gap there in the middle when A&M joined the SEC and Texas was still in the Big 12. But it's not like, Texas has dominated this rivalry since 1975. So A&M has to get their stuff together here in the next few years, like you said, and try to change the trajectory of what's going on here because you don't want to – there was a time when A&M, it was in the 70s, won like 5 or 6 in a row. And then Texas went on a streak in the 90s, won like 5 or 6 in a row. None of these rivalries, whether it's this one, the Lone Star Showdown, or the Iron Bowl, or any of that, third Saturday in October, just et cetera, you do not ever want to see your rival beat you 5 times in a row, or third Saturday in October 16 times in a row, or whatever it is. You got to get it right. Yeah.
And hey, look, I know we keep saying we're going to put a bow on it, but this is the last thing I'll say on it. To drive that point home, the last 2 games, A&M wins, they are going to Atlanta in the SEC championship last year and this year. So the stakes aren't just, I want to beat my rival. There are legitimate, big-time SEC title, playoff level stakes on the line, and A&M has laid an egg 2 years in a row. So it sucks. As a fan, it definitely sucks. I've been saying it for weeks leading into that. I wanted to go, I wanted A&M to go to the SEC title. We've been in the conference since 2012. We haven't been there. I really wanted them to go, and it sucks that they did not get it done. It really sucks. 2 years in a row, they've had a chance to go, and Texas has handled them, and it sucks.
They have. Yeah, no doubt. So, again, congrats to Texas. Hammer, I know we got to let you go. You got to get out of here for
let me I do. I got to get out of here for Bible study, but let me real quick. I'll jump ahead here to the biscuit of the week because we mentioned it earlier. I was down in Seaside, 30A area for my honeymoon, and every single morning I did get a biscuit, probably also a little bit to cope with the Aggies losing, just some comfort food, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning. But this was our first stop on Saturday morning. So the morning after, the morning after. This is a giant sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit with some jam from the Black Bear Bread Co. Some of y'all out there have probably been, because it's like right in the little seaside town.
Okay.
But this place ruled. It was awesome. We got good coffee there. They had a line out the door, so it's not a secret. People are aware of it, but it was great. And that biscuit was giant, absolute mammoth of a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit, and absolutely delicious.
That sucker looks like it's as big as your face. I mean, holy smokes. Yeah, you have to eat that in sections, it looks like.
Right. We should have done a side-by-side of my face, because that thing, it was tall. It was hard to get your entire mouth around it, but well worth it. I would highly recommend Black Bear Bread Co. for anybody down that way.
No doubt. I will be checking that out very soon. Well, thank you for giving us your biscuit of the week before you get out of here, but we'll let you run. I will do a couple more, talk about a couple more games here before we get out of here, and then I'll do our Must Champ Coach of the Week. But Hammer, we'll see you tomorrow, I think, for SEC After Dark.
Yep, should be. Appreciate it. Close out the show well. Appreciate y'all watching. We have almost 700 of y'all watching live right now, so many thanks. Let's keep it going. We got a good weekend ahead. Championship Saturday. Let's go.
Cannot wait. All right, Hammer, we'll see you soon.
All right, later.
All right. Okay. Biscuit of the week. We're done with that. I actually, before I get back to some of these rivalry week games, we're like way over time here, but I talked with Hammer before the show. It's like, maybe we should just do an extravaganza show here and go like 2 hours, because there is so much to talk about. And with just a weekly show, how are we going to hit all of this? And so we're trying to hit as much as we possibly can. But I got time. I don't got to be anywhere here. So I'm just going to get through the rest of our topics, and we'll see when we get out of here. If you guys want to hang out with us the whole time, please do. First thing I want to get to before we go back to rivalry week games is to go back at the start of the show. We talked about all the coaching carousel moves, everything that was happening, with Lane Kiffin and all that sort of stuff. Well, one that we didn't get to touch on was out of conference, which is the Penn State coaching search, which is an absolute dumpster fire. I mean, that's the only way I feel like I can describe it at this point. You've got Peter Kraft, I think is his name, the AD at Penn State, who fired James Franklin after, I think it was like week 4, he fired him. So one of the first coaches to get fired. And it kind of seems like they didn't have a plan. I mean, we are now on candidate like 16 on their list, probably. They were going after the BYU coach, Kalani Sitake, this week. It looked like they had that one close to the finish line. And I was shooting out memes all over the place about this one, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Sorry, Penn State fans, for any of you who are watching out there. But the fun of it to me is like, I tweeted out like the Trump clip, like they don't know what the F they're doing in State College right now. Seems like they didn't have a plan to go forward. Someone mentioned to me, they said, well, Kalani Sitake's a great coach. Like, are you saying he's not a good coach? No, I'm not saying that at all. Kalani Sitake is a solid coach. He's done a great job at BYU. But you don't fire James Franklin to go get Kalani Sitake at BYU if you are Penn State. You had much bigger fish who you thought you were going to be able to get, and now those are all off the table. And not only that, but the BYU, like, he doesn't have any ties to that region, at Penn State or the Midwest, as far as I'm aware. Mostly he's been in the Mountain West, and he's been, he recruits that area. So yes, he's a good coach, and sure, a good coach can come in and do a great job at any place, right? I mean, Nick Saban wasn't from Alabama. Well, he came in and crushed it in the SEC. He wasn't from Louisiana, came in and crushed it at LSU. So that's not the end all be all, but it just seemed like a real reach after they had gone down the list. Josh Heupel this week came out. He had a quote that I thought it was No3, the On3 parody account that tweeted it out, but it wasn't. It was On3 who tweeted out his quote that, he likes expectations, and he didn't want to go somewhere where there were low expectations, taking a shot at Penn State. So Josh Heupel going to be staying put. Sounds like Jeff Brom at Louisville going to be staying put, probably going to get a raise out of that. At this point, Penn State seems like they're between a rock and a hard place. If I was them, I tweeted out a joke with the Brian Windhorst meme of him doing this, like it should be Brian Kelly. They should consider Brian Kelly, but to me, it's Brian Daboll. They have to go get Brian Daboll. If they don't get Brian Daboll, like what are we doing? Brian Daboll did a great job at Alabama. While it didn't necessarily work out in New York, I think had he been given more time, it probably would have worked out. They needed to get better players, et cetera. He needed to develop Jackson Dart, but with Jackson Dart there and you can start to build, I think he probably would have gotten it done. I think he's a very good football coach, and he's got ties to that area. He's right there. I'm pretty sure he was wearing a Penn State hoodie after he got fired in New York. So to me, Penn State, go get Brian Daboll. It sounds like some of the boosters, the donors, and the fan base now want, I think his name is Terry Smith, the guy who's the interim coach there. So it seems like it's a fight between Kraft and the donors who want Smith, and he wants Daboll, at least that was the chatter that I was hearing before I got on tonight. So we'll see. I did want to play this meme that I made because I was very proud of it. But this was Penn State going after Kalani Sitake.
Oh, you almost had it. You got to be quicker than that.
Got to be quicker than that, Penn State. Got to be quicker than that. If you don't know everything that happened, Crumble Cookie, the CEO of Crumble Cookie, the founder of Crumble Cookie, he's a BYU grad. And so he tweeted out a couple days ago, as this was all unfolding with Kalani Sitake talking with Penn State, potentially leaving for State College, he tweeted out that maybe it was time for him to get off the sidelines and that he needed to pony up and put some money towards it to try to keep Sitake in Provo, which it sounds like he did. And then we had BYU fans, after it sounded like, okay, they got Sitake's going to stay in Provo, they started sending Crumble Cookies to the Penn State athletics facilities with Peter Kraft, his name on the Crumble Cookies, on the Crumble Cookie delivery. And then after that, today on National Signing Day, you had James Franklin. Not sure if it was him, but come on, it was him. At least maybe some of donors or somebody. They had Crumble Cookies at their National Signing Day party on the table, which was tweeted all over the place. I thought that was hilarious. That's why we love college football. I mean, where else are you going to get that? You're not going to get that anywhere else. Greatest sport on earth. So Kalani Sitake staying put. Penn State still without a head coach. Who on earth knows who they're going to get? Mike Huseman here. At this point, if you hire the interim, it's tough because everyone knows it's your 15th choice. I agree with that. I mean, but at this point, whoever you hire, whether it's the interim or anybody else, it's their 15th choice, 16th, 18th, 19th. You're on the third page of choices of whoever, that list that's in the desk of every AD. I mean, where do you go from here? Again, for my 2 cents, Brian Daboll, or maybe I can interest you in Jimbo Fisher. Up to them. We'll see what they end up doing. But at this point, also James Franklin crushing it in recruiting with Virginia Tech, flipping a ton of old Penn State commits and all that. But he took Virginia Tech from I think it was like the hundreds or the 80s or something with their recruiting class into the top 25 within like 2 weeks, if that, a week. So he's doing a great job there. I think he's going to have Virginia Tech back very, very quickly. So we'll see. Penn State, by the way, today they signed a couple recruits. They were at 136th out of 136 FBS teams in terms of their recruiting class. So not going very well there in State College right now. All right, let's get to a couple of games that we missed out on. We weren't able to talk about them earlier with Hammer, but we had a couple more rivalry week games that we needed to get into. Not going to be able to get into all of them just because of time here, but 2 that we did want to get into, the Iron Bowl, and then I also want to get into Vandy, Tennessee for a bit before we get to our Muschamp Coach of the Week. Bama escapes again. The Iron Bowl, the Jordan-Hare voodoo, it looked like it might be in the air. I mean, it was 17-0. Bama raced out to a lead. It looked like, we got Isaiah Horton, he's doing the scorpion. Looks like Bama's going to run away with it. And then Auburn starts coming back. And then we have it. It's 2020 in the fourth quarter. It is going to be an Iron Bowl to remember yet again. And what does Ty Simpson do? He leads them on a long drive, 75 yards, that ends up in another Isaiah Horton touchdown. And moxie, as we talked about earlier with Ellie Mae, moxie on Ty Simpson, backs against the wall, and he leads them on a long drive, punches it in for a touchdown. Auburn still had a chance later. They had 2 chances, were unable to punch it in, unable to get that touchdown in order to tie up Bama and try to take that one into overtime. But I liked what I saw from Alabama. This is a rivalry game. Throw it all out the window. You know, Auburn's had a tough year, fired their coach, DJ Durkin. They looked a little bit better under him. Ashton Daniels looked pretty good under Durkin in his one start under Durkin. So going into this one, I know that Alabama fans were worried about it, and I was worried about it for them too, because you never know what could happen in this game. Tons of craziness has happened in the past, almost happened again this year, but Alabama able to get the win, keep their playoff hopes alive, and get into the SEC title game. So good for the Tide. I'm going to be very interested to see how this one looks going forward. Maybe new Penn State coach Kalen DeBoer. I'm just kidding. Rick, I'm just kidding. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think you guys have Kalen DeBoer there for a long time, which I know also his wife is, I think it's coming out maybe tomorrow, but Next Round Live, or maybe it was, I think it was Alabama. Alabama sat down with Kalen DeBoer's wife. First interview she has done since she has been at Alabama with her husband. And so apparently she is all about Alabama, loves the Tide, excited to be in Tuscaloosa. So it doesn't sound like they're going anywhere. Sounds like they will be staying put in Tuscaloosa for the foreseeable future, as long as Tide fans will have them. And no matter what happens in the SEC title game, they should be in the college football playoff, and they should get a shot at a national title, despite what happened in week 1 and all the craziness that happened after that. Fire DeBoer, this team's not going to do it. The dynasty's over. All that, they're right back where they should be. So I do want to show this real quick. This was our preseason graphic. Bossman and Hammer, these were our picks to go to the SEC title game. Alabama versus Georgia. We picked it. We got it right. What a surprise. It's Alabama, Georgia. So, not that hard of a pick for us, I guess. But I picked Georgia to win. Hammer picked Alabama. So we're split on this one. Rick, I'm sorry I didn't pick your Tide. But Georgia, Alabama, it is going to be a fun one in Atlanta this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. Wow. Look at that. Look at us, man. Look at us. Who would have thought? All right. Let's get into Vanderbilt and Tennessee. I wanted to talk about this one a little bit just because of what happened in the second half. I mean, Vanderbilt in this series, Tennessee has owned them, right? Just go back, go look at Winsipedia. Tennessee, this has been their rivalry, if you can even call it that, for much of its history. So Vanderbilt has Tennessee on the ropes last year, going into Knoxville this year, chance to get to 10-2, chance to put yourself at the edge of the playoff conversation, if not in. And Diego Pavia has a chance to have his Heisman moment. Diego Pavia has his Heisman moment, in my opinion. And now in the odds, he is tied with Fernando Mendoza of Indiana to be your Heisman winner. So this one was tied at halftime. And Vanderbilt comes out in the second half and just drubs Tennessee. They only give up 3 points in the second half. It was 21-21 at halftime, 3 points in the second half. Diego Pavia plays lights out. The defense starts getting into it. 165 yards for Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia outgained Tennessee by himself, 51 more yards than Tennessee's offense Diego Pavia had against Tennessee. Vandy outgains Tennessee 579 to 382. Diego Pavia was responsible for like 400 and something of that. And Vanderbilt stuffed the Vols run game. They only allowed 83 yards on 31 carries, and it was just a dominant win. I mean, watching that second half, my jaw was just kind of like agape. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And as Josh Heupel said in the postgame press conference, that is not up to the standard of Tennessee defense. Like, that's not how we're supposed to play defense here, and we're going to fix it. So we'll see what he does in the transfer portal in the offseason, and if he can, develop some guys and get this team back to playing defense that they expect in Knoxville. For my money, I think Vanderbilt should be in the playoff. Y'all can disagree with me. Happy to hear about it in the comments, but I think Vanderbilt should be in the playoff. They are 10-2, and I know that they've got the head-to-head loss to Texas, and that's a tough one. Got within, onside kick from going down and scoring again. They scored on all their drives, I believe it was in the second half. And 10-2, best season in Vanderbilt history. Texas lost to Florida, 4-8 Florida. Horns fans, I know, I'm an Aggie. I know. You lost to Florida. Don't lose to Florida. Vanderbilt, just 2 losses. Vanderbilt, in my opinion, should be in the playoff. I think, too, for my money, if I was a Heisman voter, Travis Brown last week, he's a Heisman voter. He didn't give us a hint, but if I was a Heisman voter, I would say it is Diego Pavia for my money. So good game there for the Commodores in Knoxville. Congratulations to them on a big win, and congratulations to them on an awesome season and re-upping Clark Lee. And potentially, I don't know, as I got on this show, I don't know if it was a done deal, but 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis from Nashville, hometown kid, potentially going to flip to Vanderbilt from Georgia. The news broke. It was seemingly out there. And then Curtis tweeted that he hadn't informed coaches and that, so pump the brakes on that for a second. Mike Huseman, you may have a little bit more intel on that. I'm not sure, but it'll be fascinating to see if they're able to do that. I also believe they flipped a 4-star wide receiver from Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. So Clark Lee doing work there, going to be there in Nashville for a while. Maybe Vandy coming. Maybe they are well on their way to actually doing what Diego Pavia said in the preseason, that they're going to make Vandy one of the premier programs in the country, premier program in the SEC, and competing for national titles. They're not far away from it. So we'll see if they can keep it going and sustain the success. All right, everybody, let's finish out the show here. We do this every single week. The Muschamp Coach of the Week. We are not making fun of Coach Muschamp here. If you haven't watched the show before, we got many new viewers here. I'm sure we are well over 700 here, about 770 of you watching us right now. Coach Muschamp, we love Coach Muschamp. He exudes the passion of college football, punching whiteboards, blood running down his face, headbutting players. Didn't work out as he would have liked at his stops at Florida and at South Carolina. But no matter, we love him. He's a legend here at Biscuits and SEC. Award this to the coach every single week who best exudes that passion for college football. And this week we had plenty of candidates, not only from Rivalry Week, but also from the new coaches who were trying to win the press conference. As we talked at the outset of the show, big thing, new coach, got to come in, win the press conference. That's a big deal. So we did have one. I thought Alex Golesh did a pretty good job of trying to win his press conference. We're going to run the ball. I don't golf. My wife's a golfer. My son's a golfer. I don't really golf. I'm not very good at golf. That's a setup question, is what he said. But he gets the runner-up this week. There was somebody else who gets the Muschamp Coach of the Week. Hammer already blew my cover on it. It's Jon Sumrall, the new Florida Gators head coach, Tulane head coach through the college football playoff if they make it. So Jon Sumrall, your Muschamp Coach of the Week.
Coach Cam Parker with Florida Gators on SI. A lot was made about the coaching search in general here. I think some fans were maybe even concerned about a group of 5 head coach coming in.
Yeah.
What gives you maybe the conviction that you're the right guy for the job, and your message for the fan base that you can win a championship here?
Yeah, no 2 people are the same. Okay. And Coach Meyer, you coached G5 football, I think, right? Yeah. Kurt Signetti coached G5, I think. I actually coached against Kurt some. No 2 people are the same. You know, just because you're a reporter, I may have had an interaction with another reporter and not liked it, doesn't mean I'm going to judge you that way. Judge me for who I am. I'm a winner. We're going to win. And just give me a shot. Believe in me. Here's the deal. I need everybody pulling the rope the same direction. Because if anybody's pulling the other direction, it don't make the job easier. It makes it harder. If we're all Gators, we all want to win, let's do this together. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. Let's go together.
I love that quote from Jon Sumrall. Judge me for who I am, and let's go win. And we all need to be pulling the rope in the same direction. Mentions that G5 coaches, Urban Meyer, Kurt Signetti, maybe Bob Chesney here soon from JMU. There have been many coaches who have come up from the G5 level. And Nick Saban, anyone? He did that. So we'll see. No 2 coaches are the same as well, what he said. Smart, We know that Billy Napier didn't work out there in Gainesville, but I think Jon Sumrall I think he's a darn good coach, and I think he's going to do a really, really good job for the folks there in Gainesville. So I thought that quote was great. Jon Sumrall gets his first win as actually maybe second. I think he got one as well as the Tulane coach. I'm going to have to go back and check our archives. But Jon Sumrall, first win, Muschamp Coach of the Week as the new Florida Gators head coach. So congratulations to Coach Sumrall. We will be sure to get your certificate and maybe your trophy in the mail here in the next 5 years. I'm sure that will go on his trophy case in the back for when he is on SEC Network on the Feinbaum Show. It will be displayed proudly. I have no doubt about it. All right, everybody. That's going to do it here for us tonight at Biscuits and SEC Live. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. 780 of you watching us right now. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys will join us again next week. We are here every single week. Wednesdays, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, Bossman and Hammer, as always. And then typically we've got a guest picker. We'll see what we're going to do. I think we're going to have some guests going through the offseason as well to talk basketball, talk SEC baseball. Basketball heating up a lot right now. Florida almost beat Duke last night. What a comeback they had. Unfortunately, fall by a point. If you guys are not signed up for the Morning Biscuits newsletter, you can sign up right here, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. That is written by myself and by Hammer. We write it on Mondays and on Fridays during the season. Everything you need to know about SEC football. We include SEC shorts on Mondays as well, recap the games, everything from the action over the weekend. And then on Friday, we get you caught up from everything throughout the week and ready for the weekend ahead. Injury reports, all the news that's been going on, SEC news and notes, all that sort of stuff. So be sure to check out the Morning Biscuits newsletter. It's free to sign up, and we would love to have you guys be part of that community. Also, we haven't been as much, but we typically are on SEC After Dark every Thursday night. That is at 9 Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. A lot of fun. That's where we make our picks. So please join us tomorrow night. As you can see down there in the bottom left, Thursdays, 9 Eastern, 8 Central at SEC After Dark is where you can follow us on Twitter. That is the whole crew. We got Locked On Ole Miss, Stephen Willis, who does a fantastic job. He has done an incredible job covering all this Lane Kiffin news. So be sure to go follow him. Go check out his stuff at Locked On Ole Miss. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel and follow him on Twitter. We got Jake Thomas of Bama After Dark, also part of the SEC After Dark show, the After Dark Network. Bama After Dark 2 is where you can follow Jake Thomas. He does a great job covering the Tide. Typically, that show is out on Tuesdays, 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. And then also our friend Mike Huseman, who joins us every Wednesday here in the chat. And I actually joined him this week. We did an emergency podcast, as I mentioned during the show, with Jake Thomas, Mike Huseman, and myself, talking about all the stuff that was going on the coaching carousel. So we had a great time doing that. If you guys didn't see that episode, go search Offseason After Dark on YouTube, and you can check out all of our thoughts for about an hour is what we talked about. So typically his show comes out Tuesdays in the morning. Don't be fooled by the name. He also does it during the season. So Offseason After Dark goes all the way through the season as well. He talks SEC football, ACC football, G5. Mike goes deep into everything you want to know about college football. Does a great job also writing for Mike Farrell Sports. You can also check out the Regular Guys pod. That is with Corey Burton and Israel Troop. It's a little bit of a varied schedule. So be sure to follow them on Twitter for when that one is going to come out. They talk all things football and a little bit of pop culture mixed in there as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Boss Man. We will see you guys tomorrow night for SEC After Dark, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, as we make our picks for championship weekend. The final week, I think we might pick the playoffs as well, but final week for picks at least through championship weekend. And it's a barn burner. We got the pick standings are close this year as they were last year. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys there tomorrow night. Sign up for the Morning Biscuits newsletter. We'll see you guys back here next Wednesday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central for Biscuits and SEC Live. Thank you so much for joining us.